Most people over 50 who eat canned tuna weekly are picking the wrong kind, and the label will not warn them. The FDA tested over 1,000 canned tuna samples. It found striking mercury differences between types, and some have nearly 3 times more mercury than others. In this video, you will see which tuna to avoid, which is the safest, and you will learn simple label rules to protect your brain, your heart, and your blood pressure as you age. This is not about fear. It is how to keep tuna on the menu without the hidden health gamble. The FDA Mercury testing program analyzed over 1,000 canned tuna samples, spanning multiple brands and types, to answer a simple question: how much mercury is really in each kind of tuna? The numbers reveal a clear pattern. Albacore, often labeled white tuna, averages 0.350 parts per million of mercury. Light tuna, which is usually skipjack, comes in much lower at 0.126 parts per million. That is nearly 3 times lower than albacore. Big eye tuna, though less common in cans, stands out with the highest average, 0.689 parts per million. For comparison, common salmon varieties routinely test at just 0.014 parts per million, making them one of the lowest mercury fish choices available. These figures come from FDA market basket surveys, which pool data from hundreds of canned and fresh tuna products collected between 1990 and 2012. The sample size, over 1,000 for canned tuna alone, means these averages are not just outliers or one-off results. They reflect what shoppers are likely to find on store shelves across the country. While the averages are clear, the FDA also notes that individual cans can vary, sometimes containing much more or much less mercury than the mean. When looking at these numbers side by side, the risk difference between types becomes hard to ignore. Albacore sits solidly in the moderate mercury range, light tuna remains well below the FDA concern threshold, and big eye is high enough to be listed as a fish to avoid for sensitive groups. These hard numbers set the stage for understanding why the type of tuna in your cart matters, especially as you get older and health risks from mercury exposure add up over time. Mercury does not end up in tuna by accident. It builds up through a process called bioaccumulation, which starts at the very bottom of the food chain. Tiny plankton absorb trace amounts of mercury from ocean water. Small fish eat the plankton, picking up that mercury and adding it to their own bodies. As bigger fish eat the smaller ones, the mercury load grows. Each step up the food chain concentrates the mercury, so by the time you reach large predatory fish like albacore and big eye tuna, the levels are much higher than in the smaller species they feed on. The difference comes down to size and lifespan. Albacore and big eye tuna live longer and grow much larger than skipjack, the main species in light tuna. A skipjack might weigh 7 to 10 pounds and live just a few years. Albacore can reach 60 pounds and live a decade or more. That extra time and size give albacore many more chances to eat contaminated prey, and no way to get rid of the mercury that builds up. As a result, the mercury in their flesh is often 3 times higher than in skipjack. Big eye, which grows even larger, averages nearly twice as much mercury as albacore. This is not a problem unique to tuna. Any long-lived, top-of-the-food-chain fish will have more mercury than smaller, short-lived species. That is why salmon, which feed lower on the food chain and grow quickly, test at just a fraction of the mercury found in tuna. Understanding this chain reaction helps explain why label terms like light and albacore are more than just marketing. They are a clue to the fish's place in the food web and to the mercury you might be getting with each bite. Mercury levels in canned tuna do not just depend on the species. They can swing wildly from one brand to another, and even from can to can. Consumer Reports put this to the test by sampling 30 cans across 5 major brands, including Bumblebee, Chicken of the Sea, Starkist, Wild Planet, and Safe Catch. The results were striking. Albacore varieties averaged 3 times the mercury of light or skipjack, but the surprises did not stop there. In one case, a can of chicken of the sea albacore packed 10 times more mercury than the same brand's light tuna. That is not just a small difference. It is enough to shift a can from a safer choice to one that should be avoided entirely, based on FDA guidelines. Even among so-called premium brands, the numbers were not always predictable. Wild Planet's skipjack, typically considered a lower mercury option, sometimes tested nearly as high as its albacore. Safe Catch, which says it tests every fish, consistently landed on the lower end for mercury across both types, but Consumer Reports did not find it to be a dramatic outlier, just reliably low, not uniquely so. This kind of variability means that picking a brand or paying more for a gourmet label does not guarantee a safer can. To cut through the confusion, Consumer Reports analysts recommend a 4-rule checklist for anyone shopping for tuna. Rule 1. Always check the label for the species. Look for skipjack or light instead of just tuna. Rule 2. Avoid albacore or white tuna if you want to keep mercury low. Rule 3. Do not assume premium or gourmet brands are safer. Rule 4. Remember that even within brands, mercury can spike, so variety and moderation are key. With these rules in mind, shoppers can make smarter choices and avoid unexpected mercury surprises. Salt sneaks into canned tuna just as quietly as mercury, but its effects show up in a different way, especially after age 50. Most standard 5-ounce cans of tuna contain between 250 and 400 milligrams of sodium, according to FDA and USDA nutrition data. That is about 12 to 20% of the recommended daily value, all in a single serving. Oil-packed varieties often climb even higher, sometimes topping 500 milligrams per can. For people managing blood pressure, these numbers matter as much as mercury content. Dietitians often recommend aiming for less than 250 milligrams of sodium per serving when choosing canned fish. This target helps keep daily totals in check, particularly for those watching their salt for heart health. Water-packed light tuna usually lands closer to this goal, while albacore and oil-packed cans are more likely to go over. The difference comes down to how tuna is processed and what is added during packing, because oil holds onto more salt, and bigger fish like albacore tend to be paired with richer, saltier brines. Hypertension risk rises with age, and excess sodium is a key driver. For adults over 50, even small changes, like swapping oil-packed albacore for water-packed light tuna, can reduce sodium intake by a meaningful margin. Clinicians point out that every bit counts. Lowering sodium helps manage blood pressure, which in turn protects heart and brain health. That is why reading both the mercury and sodium lines on the label is essential. The smartest weekly protein rotation balances these two risks, favoring lower sodium, lower mercury options most of the time while keeping variety on the plate. For adults over 50, the safe approach is to keep tuna as part of your diet, but stick to clear limits. The FDA and EPA translate their mercury data into simple weekly rules. Albacore, also called white tuna, should be limited to 1 serving a week, about 4 ounces, roughly half of a standard can. Light tuna, which is mostly skipjack, can be enjoyed more often, up to 2 or even 3 servings, or about 12 ounces per week. That lines up with the EPA reference dose for mercury, which is set to protect even the most sensitive adults. Think of it as the 2-meal rule. No more than 2 tuna meals per week, and only one of those should be albacore. For those who want to mix things up, salmon and other low-mercury fish can be eaten freely. These numbers make the math simple and help keep both mercury and sodium in check without cutting out canned tuna altogether. Keeping tuna on the menu is simple with a smart rotation. Salmon offers a reliable low-mercury choice, averaging just 0.014 parts per million, so low it is considered one of the safest fish for regular meals. Eggs, another go-to protein, contain no mercury at all, and fit easily into any weekly plan. Many shoppers find that swapping 1 or 2 tuna servings each week for salmon or eggs keeps meals interesting without raising mercury or sodium concerns. Some brands, like Wild Planet, build trust by consistently sourcing smaller skipjack tuna, which helps keep mercury levels down, though it is still important to check the label for species. For those who have made the switch, the feedback is clear. Variety makes it easy to keep canned tuna as an affordable, convenient staple while sidestepping the risks. With a little planning, it is possible to enjoy the benefits of seafood and keep every meal both safe and satisfying. FDA and consumer reports. Data make one thing clear. For adults over 50, small label choices shape long-term health. Mercury isn't just a number, it's a risk you can control at every meal. Smart shopping today safeguards your brain and heart tomorrow. Thanks for taking charge of your health.